Okay, so now that you have your floor plan in place inside of Revit and we've got it scaled correctly, let's start using, or looking at rather, some of the basic elements to do your virtual construction of your building model. Underneath the Architecture tab, the first few things you're going to be using quite a bit: walls, doors, and windows. And so let's go ahead and break those down first. We'll get into roofs and floors and ceilings a little bit later. As you're starting out in Revit, if we activate the wall tool, we want to keep things simple. All right, so rather than using some of the more complex wall systems that have multiple layers, the beginning point for most of your projects should really be these generic wall types: 5-inch, 6-inch, and 8-inch, and 12-inch. So let's just drop this down really quick to a generic 6-inch thick wall. And the drawing process is pretty simple. Again, once the tool is activated, the ribbon is going to change based on what that wall is going to do. And in particular, you want to pay attention to this row just underneath the ribbon. What we're looking at is basically how the wall is going to be drawn right here. So we have a defined height. The height is currently unconnected. So in other words, it is going to be a 20-foot wall that's not connected to level 1 or level 2. It's going to be drawn on the bottom of level 1. Okay, so that's where I'm drawing at. That's my work plane, essentially, is level 1. It's going to be 20 feet tall. Right now it's being drawn at the center line. What that means is if I'm drawing a wall, I'm drawing about the center line of the wall. Okay, the next is chain, and that means each time I draw a wall, the next piece is essentially chained together. So it's going to make one continuous wall. Okay, next we have offset. I rarely use this, but essentially the idea of offset is I can put in a number, 10 feet, and as I'm drawing a wall, it's actually going to draw it 10 feet off of where my current line is at. Other important things to note: join status, radius, some of those things are going to become useful to you as you move along. So let's just lasso and erase those. And let's go back into wall, generic wall. Rather than drawing by the center line, I typically find it most useful to be drawing at the finished face exterior or interior. What this is going to do is that's going to be drawing at the outside edge as I'm putting my walls in place. This is just a little bit more useful to me because I know sort of a precise dimension on the outside rather than trying to do the math in my head and constantly divide something by 2, which is reasonably easy with a 6-inch wall, more complicated to do when we have more complex wall systems as you advance through Revit. So as I'm drawing, you can also note that hitting the space bar is going to flip the side that the wall is being drawn at as you put things together. Now, just like our line tools, as I'm starting to build with walls, I still have a lot of the drawing commands open for me, right? So for instance, if I need to put these two walls together, I can do that by selecting the wall and then just dragging the grip, selecting this wall and dragging the grip until I get them close, or more to the point, precisely together. Or a much faster way to do that is to use the trim command, which is underneath modify. Trim, and then select the parts of the wall that you want to keep. And that will start putting things together in a much, much faster way for you as you begin to draw. Next, as I'm building these walls, it is putting them together entirely in 3D, right? So I have all of this information coming together. If you remember, these walls are 20 feet tall. That's how we drew them. And they are unconnected. So in other words, there's nothing that's attaching them to a specific point. As you improve in your Revit skills, one of the things that you're going to find that you want to do is actually begin attaching these walls to a level. So for instance, if I'm a 3-level building, I'm going to go ahead and copy this up. And now it's automatically going to name that level 3 for me because that's the logical step after level 2. If I select these walls, so that was just a left lasso across all of the walls, I can tell those I actually want them to be attached to level 2. That would be in the base. Let's undo that. Oh, good grief. If I select these walls, the base constraint is set to level 1. That's what I accidentally just changed. The top constraint is currently unconnected, but I can place that at level 2. This gives me the opportunity to, anywhere a level 2 happens to go to, so if I set that to 12 feet, those walls are going to modify. In other words, they're going to be stuck to level 2. So that becomes 12 and 24. So my finished floor heights are 12 feet apart. I can continue to move those up and around. And I can change those at any time. Rather than connecting to level 2, I can tell them to connect to level 3. And those are going to flex and move based on what my model geometry is doing.